Okay. Beseder, shalom, everybody. Hi, I'm happy to be with all of you again. So I wanted today to give the class about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the special image of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I'm just asking. It's now 10:30. Is a little after time. It's the right time to start, right? I mean, we're okay.
You're in the right place.
All right. Yes. No. I just see almost all the cameras are closed, so I'm feeling.
I see a number of people are there.
I'm feeling like I'm speaking to boxes, black boxes. But beseder, so anyone who is willing to open his camera, it will be appreciated, and those who don't, it's okay. But we'll just
It's open.
it will make a better feeling, I believe. Boker tov, everybody. So yeah, so it's Yud Zayin Iyar today, and aside from it being the yortzeit of the Noda B'Yehuda, who was a giant in Prague, and it's a day before Lag BaOmer. So that's why I chose to speak about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's very complex and special image, and we'll bring both sources from his opinions in halachic issues, in stories about him, about his interactions with the world, his general approach, and we'll see that he's definitely a complex person, and of course we can't ignore what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is very famous about, the Zohar, or all the mysticism, the esoteric side, the deep side, and we'll see how there is a relationship between this and some continuum between this and his general approach to the world. Very deep, focuses very on the inside, on the spiritual aspects, less than the material aspects, we'll call it this way. And I have to say that, and just one more thing, if you'll allow me to add, I have a special, and it's a Torah Mitzion project, what we're now inside, what we're involved in now. So I think I have to mention this. I even have a duty towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu to mention what I'm going to mention now, is that in this day, Yud Zayin Iyar, in 1988, I participated personally in a military operation in Lebanon as a paratrooper, as a yeshiva bachur who is a paratrooper, Hester, Torah Mitzion, we can say. And it was like a mini war in Lebanon. It was behind the red, what we call the red line, the red border. It was a military operation that infantry, tanks, Air Force, all were involved. It was like a mini war for half a day. The biggest military operation since the first Lebanon War. There was a Hezbollah headquarters in a village, evacuated village. They made out of it a base called Maidun. This military operation took place in response to several. Well, the worst was that the week beforehand, on the border of Israel, a Magad, the big commander, was killed by mechablim, by terrorists, and I was one of I had the zchus to be part of a paratroop unit that participated in this military operation, and then it will come out in the middle of our class in approximately 11:15. I received a rocket, a Hezbollah rocket, Resisim. I don't know how you say Resisim. When the rocket explodes, then there are all kinds of things that are injuring soldiers. So 4 soldiers were injured.
Shrapnel.
All 4 soldiers were injured together. I was injured in my hand and in my back, and I was 2.5 weeks in a hospital. And thank God Hashem saved me that I didn't get it in the head and I didn't get it in other places because I was protected. So today I didn't say Tachnan, I said Hallel without a bracha. And here publicly, I want to thank Hashem for saving me and for having this chus. That was 1988, to have this chus in 2021, to give a shir in Torah Mitzion, Baruch Hashem. So that's Yud Zayin Iyar for me.
Why not make a bracha?
Why not make a bracha? That's what the authority is saying. When there is a miracle for an individual and not for Am Yisrael, the sources say even if there was a miracle for a community and not for Klal Yisrael, then you say Hallel without a bracha. Hallel with a bracha is said only regarding a miracle that is for Klal Yisrael. By the way, there are interesting discussions regarding it. They're interesting. You could look. The source is Rabbi. I believe it's Rabbi Yonatan on the Rif on Brachos and others. It's one of my sources when I give a shir about Hallel and Yom Ha'atzmaus. Some of the rabbis said to make without a bracha, like Rav Ovadia, one of his claims, why not make a bracha if you say it all, is because it wasn't a miracle to Klal Yisrael. It was only to the Jews that were here in Israel. Of course, there is strong arguments against this thing. We see the miracle of founding the Jewish state as a miracle that is definitely relevant to every person in the world. So it's definitely to Klal Yisrael. Probably he would answer that he means only the miracle about saving a life in danger. And that applied only, but even regarding this, I disagree with him. I think it's saving lives of Jews everywhere. So I disagree with him, and not only me, other rabbis, but I'm just, whether it is defined as a miracle to the community that was here in Israel or to Klal Yisrael. Okay, but you see that the underlying assumption, okay, Phil, is that if it's a miracle that is only for a specific community, the community, needless to say, for an individual, it will be without a bracha, the Hallel. Okay, that's the sine qua non. Now you'll have a whole discussion. How do I view the miracle of Yom Ha'atzmaut? Yeah, I think it's to Klal Yisrael, and a very nice answer in Horayos, in a different context, though, we see that the Jews that are in Israel, they are the ones that for some halachos, like Kiddush HaChodesh, Haralim Davar Shel Tzibur, are considered Klal Yisrael. So that's another way to answer Rav Ovadia. Okay? All right, that was a parenthetical remark. Let's return to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I want to share with you the screen. Let's see this very, very interesting, what is called the Tana Eloki, the godly Tana, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and his complex figure, sometimes very tough, sometimes very understanding and soft. Let's see. Rabbi Shimon Omer, okay? Gimel Ktarim hem. Yeah, that's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, and we're reading from a source that is called Avo de Rabbi Natan, which is a Baraita elaborating of Rabbi Natan, a Tana, elaborating on some Mishnayos and Pirkei Avos. So Rabbi Shimon is saying there are three Gimel Ktarim hem, Eluhen, Keter Torah, Keter Kahuna, Keter Malchut, Keter Shem Tov Olal. There are 3 crowns. The crown of Torah, the crown of Kahuna, and the crown of kingdom. Keter Kahuna, the crown of Kahuna, of priests. Ketzad, how is this going? Afilu noten kesef ezav shebaolam ein notnim lo. keter kuna. Even if one will pay for being a Cohen, that won't help him. Why? As it says, this is a brit, a covenant, forever, and it's lo lizaro, meaning this is dynasty. Someone who wasn't born a Cohen for a family of Kohanim cannot be a Cohen. Y'all know the famous joke about the Jew that came to a rabbi and told him,
Money.
I'm willing to donate an entire shul. I have money, just let me be a Cohen. Okay, it was very tempting for the rabbi, but the rabbi told him, you know, it won't help you. You can't be a Cohen. And then, you know, there was back and forth. There was back and forth there. You see, there was back and forth there. And then there was back and forth there. And then the rabbi said, you know, after all, why do you want so much to be a Cohen? So he told him, you know, after all, my father was a Cohen, my grandpa was a Cohen, so I also want to be a Cohen. Okay. Then you have Keter Malchus, the crown of kingdom. Okay, I won't read it for the lack of time, but it's the same idea. Even if you pay a lot of money, you can't be a king. Only a descendant of David HaMelech can be a king of Yehuda. However, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Keter Torah eino ken. The crown of Torah is not that way. Amala shel Torah, the effort you put in learning Torah, the Torah is democratic. The Torah is open for everybody, meaning as opposed to the previous crowns, the crowns of priesthood and the crown of kingdom, which are closed club, meaning it's only for descendants of Kohanim or descendants of David HaMelech. The crown of Torah is mamish open to everybody to assume it. You just need to put the effort. As long as you put the effort, it's open for everyone, that crown. Now, we see here, why did I open the shir about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai with this? We see the value that it gives to Talmud Torah. We'll see more than that, the value. Furthermore, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, from what we know about him, he didn't have such a great yichus, okay? But you know what? Maybe he even had, I have to be careful. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a student, one of these students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Who was his Rebbe? Lag BaOmer. Who was his Rebbe?
Akiva.
Rabbi Akiva. Now, what do we know about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's image, the image that he looks up to? Rabbi Akiva. Did he have a great yichus, Rabbi Akiva?
No.
Rabbi Akiva, we know that till the age of 40, he himself was an Amaretz. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai knows that very well. Yeah, he's a student of such a self-made man guy. So no wonder that Rabbi Shimon is the one that is telling us, you know, the crown of Torah here, my Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva, that's open to everybody, okay? That's open to everyone. That's A. And B, of course, the value of full devotion, going to the extreme with Talmud Torah. This also we internalize from Rabbi Akiva, that we know how much he kicked in, how much he invested in Talmud Torah, okay? Let's go back to the source. So now all of this sounds nice, but now let's look to something that is much harder to digest, yeah? Till now it was very, what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said till now was very easy to associate with and to digest, yeah? Yeah, Torah is open for everybody, just suffer, put efforts, and it's yours. Now look at what he says. Hoy amel b'divrei Torah. You should be really busy and consume and put effort in divrei Torah. Ve'al titasek b'divrei batala. Here, I'll make the letters a little bigger. Okay, so we'll be more friendly to all of you. Hevei amel b'divrei Torah work hard in there and don't be preoccupied with divrei batala. Ma'aseh Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What the story goes of our Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that he was busy doing Bikur Cholim. By the way, his Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva, wrote great things about Bikur Cholim. So he probably wanted to follow the actions of his rabbi. He found someone itching very much and having very suffering from stomach. Choli me'ayim. Now, this sick person that he found was suffering greatly from stomach aches, and it was so extreme that he was cursing, was saying bad things towards Hashem. Okay, he had an issue with Hashem, this suffering man. Amarlo, what is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai telling him? Reika, you are an empty person. Instead of praying for yourself and asking mercy from God on yourself, you are saying curses to Hashem. Oh, okay, now tell me, do you think it's the most sensitive attitude towards you're visiting a sick man, and you're seeing that he's in such a terrible condition that he is saying bad things towards God? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gives him musar. He tells him, are you out of your mind? When you're suffering so much, instead of saying hard things towards Hashem, ask mercy from Hashem. Makes perfect logic from a religious perspective. What do you say about the sensitivity? Okay, I'll leave it as a rhetorical question. Okay, but it doesn't end here. So the response of this suffering man was the following, not an easy one. Amarlo, so he told Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yesalkenu mimeni ve'inichenu alecha. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu remove the suffering from me and put it on you. That's what he tells Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay, so you can say that he's very chutzpahdik. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the chief rabbi, I don't know what, very not respectful. But, it's the guy is suffering. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gave him musar with no acknowledgement, it seems here, to his suffering. Didn't even say, okay, I understand you're suffering so much, you're in great pain, but maybe it's better to ask for mercy. He didn't tell him, he didn't speak to him down. We tell him, you're an empty man. You're out of your mind. That's what you're doing. So he said, oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm asking for mercy. So he says, I'm asking God to remove this suffering from me and put it on you. So what is he answering? What is he saying? Amar, here it depends whether he says it to himself or he says it to the man. Yafeh asalecha HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Good HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to you or did to me, depends how you understand it. Shinachti divrei Torah v'ayiti mitasek b'dvarim betelim. It's good what happened either to you, the sick man, or to me, doesn't matter now, because instead of learning Torah, I was busy with nonsense. Wow. This is a very rough, meaning, what is the nonsense? Talking with you or visiting you, yeah? Instead of doing this nonsense, I should have been still occupied with Talmud Torah. That's an illustration to Havei Amel Batorah. Remember, that's how it started, that Torah needs effort and investment. I think it's an illustration, without going into too many details, how to interpret this deeply, this dialogue. We see the rough, how much Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lives in a different planet in terms of his extreme devotion to Talmud Torah, and how come sometimes the confrontation, the meeting between him and regular people is a traumatic confrontation. It's like someone in the sky that the communication between him and the ordinary people is rough and sometimes traumatic. There are other examples to this, but for now, I stay with this example, okay? So we see the value that he gives to Divrei Torah and the fact that his personality could be sometimes rough in terms of the confrontation between him and the regular world. Another source that shows us how extreme he went with the idea of Talmud Torah and its value, the famous machlokas between him and Rabbi Ishmael. There is a Tanaic source saying, Ve'asafta deganecha, Tanu Rabbanan ve'asafta deganecha. Yeah, we say in V'ayayim Shamoah, you should gather harvest, you should gather your wheat from the field. Lefi Shneimar, it says in Joshua chapter 1, Lo Yamush Sefer HaTorah Zemipicha, that the Sefer Torah, the Talmud Torah, should not be removed from your mouth. Yachol Dvarim Kikavan, so maybe we should interpret it literally, that 24/7 you should only learn Torah, and that's all you should do. Talmud Lo Omar Ve'asafta Deganecha. It does say in Vayam Shah that you should gather your wheat from the field, or in a more broader sense, make the living, make parnasa. Hanheg bahen minhag derech eretz, meaning, Divrei Rabbi Ishmael. So Rabbi Ishmael says, look, it does say in Yehoshua that the Sefer Torah should not be removed from your mouth, but it's clear that you should read this verse, that the Sefer Torah should not be removed from your mouth, in a context. And of course, you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to brush your teeth, you need to live normal life as a material creature. So also you need to make parnasa. And you live normally, and of course make every effort to learn Torah. That's Rabbi Ishmael. And that's how he interprets the Lo Yamush Sefer HaTorah. In light of the other verses in the Torah that are saying that one should have parnasa. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, look, he disagrees with Rabbi Ishmael. He says, Efshar Adam choresh bishat charisha, zoreh bishat zriah, kotzer bishat ksira, dash bishat tisha, zoreh bishat aruach. Torah mateh aleh, if you spend all the time with work in the field, plowing, planting, harvesting, then making the bread, that's so much time consuming. Torah mateh aleh, you'll be an Amaretz. Nothing will, come on, what will be left? You'll learn a shir from the rabbi between Mincha and Mariv. That's not enough, So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, come on, Lo Yamush Sefer HaTorah Zemipicha. If you will include Parnasa in the timetable, Torah, what will be left with the Torah? Rather, Ella, Bizman Yisrael osim retzono shel makom, melachta naset al yedei acherim. Bizman she'ein Yisrael osim retzono shel makom, melachta naset al yedei atzman. So he says, I interpreted that the verse that says that you should gather your wheat from the field is really said only when we're not zoche, when we're not doing the will of Hashem, and therefore we don't merit the schus that we will merit if we will fulfill the will of Hashem. If we will fulfill, then the goyim, maybe goyim, if you, but I mean, he says, the goyim will do your job. You will learn in the koilel, and your parnasa will be given to you by the goyim that will do it for you. That's when you have a big schus. If you don't have the schus, then unfortunately, you need to work. Now, of course, as Tosfos already comments, what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says here is against the pshat. The pshat is that V'asafta deganecha in the Vayayim Shamoah is Dafka said in the context when we are listening to Hashem. But that's how he went. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai valued so much Talmud Torah that he said, and we need to be intellectually honest and understand this point, Parnasa takes a lot of time. Parnasa is very time consuming, both time and emotionally. And yeah, if Torah is only on top of normal life, including Parnasa, then what will be left with Torah? Bits and pieces, okay? So he says, no, that's not the ideal. The ideal, if everything works well and Israel are doing the will of Hashem, they could devote totally, extremely, entirely their lives to the Holy Torah. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and that's his big dispute with Rabbi Ishmael. The Gemara, Abaye, the Amora, concludes, Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai were Tanaim. Abaye concludes, Amar Abaye, Harbe, many asu ke Rabbi Ishmael val tabiadan ke Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai velo al tabiadan. Many followed the way of Rabbi Ishmael and it worked for them. Many that followed Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's way, meaning trying really to devote all their lives for Torah and somehow, struggle with living, it didn't work for them. Now, one can see this Gemara is concluding that the way of Rabbi Shimon is the right religious Zionism, Torah b'tzion, Torah v'avoda, that's the right way to go, and the Haredi Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai way is not the way to go. And we need to be intellectually honest, that's not necessarily what's written in this source, in this summary of Abaye. Abaye only says, perhaps, that's a legitimate interpretation, but an equally, and maybe even more precise, legitimate interpretation of this conclusion of Abaye is that he just says something that makes a lot of sense. The way of Rabbi Ishmael is the way for the masses. The masses cannot follow the way of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Harbe asuk Rabbi Ishmael ve'ala biyadam. Harbe, many followed Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai ve'lo ala biyadam. It didn't work for them. The masses. It's not the track for Klal Yisrael, for the masses. However, for individuals, for exceptional individuals, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, perhaps it is a legitimate way, okay? I'm just saying that this is a perfectly legitimate way of understanding this Gemara. This way or that way, we see that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a man of full devotion, extreme devotion for Talmud Torah, and that he is an elite person. Yeah, he's someone that is elevated. Atana Eloki. Yeah, he's from heaven. Okay, he is really that's where he comes from. That's where he is. Now, let's continue. Another source that illustrates his extreme devotion and extremity from Talmud Torah is the Yerushalmi here. The Yerushalmi says, Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, when, like us, like my group, I would add, elite group, that we show skin beTalmud Torah, that we're busy with Talmud Torah, afilu lekriyat Shema einanu mafsikin. We don't even stop to recite Kriyat Shema. When we're busy with Talmud Torah, we're not doing even mitzvos. You see the totality. We started Koilel, our Beis Midrash in Hanetz, okay? And the time of Kriyat Shema came up, or in Alus HaShachar. We're busy now learning Torah in Mincha Mariv. We won't stop for Kriyat Shema even, which is the Doraita commandment. Needless to say, for davening. Rabbi Yochanan says, regarding himself, like us, says Rabbi Yochanan, who is an Amora, is Israel, that we're not so busy in Talmud Torah, even for davening, which is only a rabbinic, Mariv is only, and Mincha is only rabbinic, we will stop and do that mitzvah. Okay, I'll skip a line and says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, if I would have been on Mount Sinai when the Torah was given to the people of Israel, I would ask Hashem that he would create the Itberi Lebarnasha, that he will create for human beings 2 mouths, trained pumin. Chad avilai beraita, v'chad avilei kol Torah. 1 mouth for learning Torah and 1 mouth to eat and do anything that is needed. Meaning, you see Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, so extreme. He wants a separate mouth that will 24/7 be busy with Talmud Torah. Okay, that is fitting the next source. Amar Chizkiah, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Ra'iti bnei aliyah vehen muatin. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, I've seen elite people, meaning people, elite is not the right, super people, people who are elevated, extraordinary people. I've seen extraordinary lifted people, and they're very few. Im elefen, if there are only 1,000. So he said, I've only seen very few people who are really exceptional in their spiritual height, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Masechet Sukkah. I've only seen few. If we have in the world 1,000 of these, me and my son are part of these 1,000 group. If it's only 100 in the world, me and my son are two of the 100. Im shnaimen, if there are only two people in the world that are the most elevated, I would say exceptional people, ani uvni, and it's me and my son. So you could see it, you could think that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a little arrogant here. Trust me, I don't think it was said out of arrogance. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai really lives in a different domain in that sense. His devotion and connection to Torah, and we'll see soon to the pnimius of the Torah, the deep layers of the Torah, not only full devotion to Talmud Torah and detachment from ordinary life, but the depth of Torah. And he acknowledges that he and his son are really from a different planet. So if it's only two, he says, it's probably me and my son. All of this also helps us to understand the rough interaction that we've seen in the beginning of our session, not to justify anything, but just that he was, it required some sensitivity, but that sensitivity was some connection to the world, which he just didn't have at that story. Okay? Now, let's continue. Now, let's go to this story of the cave, right? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, all of us know that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to hide in the cave, right? Who did he hide from? Chavre, who did he hide from? See, look, the percentage of the black boxes is enormous. And it's okay. I asked to open cameras, and I understand that for some people it's hard. I respect it. Anyone who can still, I'll appreciate it. But at least, I want to see that people are alive, in some sense. So who was he hiding from? Not that hard.
Romans.
The Romans. Why? Why was he hiding in a cave with his son from the Romans?
They were banning learning Torah.
What?
Learning was banned.
Learning was banned, but actually there is another reason. A more straightforward reason that is brought in the sources. The Romans were upset with him, but not only for learning Torah.
Did he support Bar Kochba?
That's a complex question, but it doesn't. So you know what? It's a great. Your answers is a great kickoff out of introduction to us learning this famous source. Here, I'll make even the letters a bit bigger. Let's read it. The Yatve, Yashvu, they were sitting together. Who? 3 Tanaim. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And a fourth student, Yehuda ben Gerim, was sitting by them. So there are 4 people here, yeah? 3 big rabbis and a student. Now let's see their conversation. Patach Rabbi Yehuda v'amar. Rabbi Yehuda opened up and said, Kama na'im ma'asehen shel umazo. How nice are the deeds of this nation. He talks about the Romans. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai is now praising the Romans. Why? Tiknu shvakim. They built up markets.
Yeah.
They did a lot of construction here. They really developed the country. Tiknu shvakim, tiknu gesharim. Tiknu merchatzot. They built bridges and intersections, and they did public wash places, which was an important need back then. So a lot of construction here that made our lives more comfortable and easy. Let's give credit to the Romans for developing our country, says Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, he has a good eye. That's nice. Rabbi Yossi is silent. And now look at the rough, at the tough Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right? You remember that we saw that when he interacts with the material world, sometimes it's not that pleasant. That's how we started the class. Now see what he has to say here in response. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, Ve'amar, kol ma shetiknu, lo tiknu ela letzorech atzman. All of the construction they have done it only for themselves, for selfish needs. Tiknu shvakin. You know why they built markets, central markets? Lo shiv ba'en zanot. They wanted good places that the prostitutes, will be there. So that was their purpose. They did great markets in order that there'll be central and good places for prostitutes. Mechatzaot. They build up these public washing places, le'aden b'hem atzmam, just to have pleasure. Gesharim, the bridges and intersections that they did, liton men meches, so they can, for having tall, what do you say? Tax, but I said, just like in America, when you have to pay tall, tall intersection, so that's why they did these bridges and intersections and constructions. All right, let's stop here. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, he praises them for developing the country. Rabbi Yossi is silent, and Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, he is very judgmental and critical. He says, I don't value what they did. The Romans. On the contrary, I look at what was the intention behind their construction, and I see that it's all negative, and that's how I judge it. Halach Yehuda ben Gerim, v'siper divreihem. Yehuda ben Gerim, the student, he told the story, and then the word Mishmul Malchut, the word came to the Roman kingdom. So they said, Yehuda She'ilah, Yehuda that praised us, Yitaleh, we will indeed give him a high position. Rabbi Yossi Sheshatak, Rabbi Yossi that was silent and didn't support Rabbi Yehuda and didn't support Rabbi Shimon, but didn't argue with Rabbi Shimon, he should have an exile to Tzipori. Shimon Shegina, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was so critical of us, Yehareg, we should kill him. All right, so now you understand to our question. So why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was running to the cave? Because the Romans wanted to kill him. Not because he was learning Torah, but because he said bad things about them. That all of what they did and all the benefits that we have from them and all the great material construction and good life that we have due to them, it's all worthless and even negative because it was all done for bad intentions. Azalhu Bare, so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son, they left the Beit Midrash and they went to the cave. Kol Yoma, every day, they went to the Beit Midrash, every day, Kol Yoma, every day, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's wife would bring them bread, water, etc. When the word came that they're even more strict, the Romans, so he said to his sons, look, Nashin datan kalalehem, dilma mitzarle, umegailalan. I'm concerned that they will make trouble to my wife and they'll find out of her, Maybe they'll torture her, whatever, and they'll get from her the information where we are. Azlu tashu b'marata. So they went and hid in the cave, b'marata. Itrachesh nisa, ivrelu charuva ve'ena demaya. A miracle happened, and they had a tree of, how do you call charuv? Remind me. Charuvim.
Carob
Carob
tree.
Carob tree. A carob tree grew up, and some spring of water. And they would take from it, and they would sit till their neck. They would sit till their neck in the sand. Every day, all the day, they would learn that way, covered by the sand without clothes. They were allowed to do that because they covered themselves with the sand. At the time that they davened, then they did dress up and davened, and then they would take off the clothes so that they will be kept, maintain the clothes, not to wear them all the time. They were sitting in the cave for 12 years. After 12 years, Eliyahu Hanavi came up at the entrance of the cave. Amar, Man Ludei Bar Yochai Demet Kesar Uvatel Gzerte. Who would inform Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Eliyahu Hanavi screamed, that the Roman Caesar passed away and now it's more safe to go out. Nafku, they went out of the cave. They saw people that are plowing and planting. Hey, does that remind you something? Plowing and planting, regular, ordinary life. So they've seen people doing that. So what is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's response after 12 years in the cave, totally being detached from material normal life and learning Torah all the time, just drinking from the water and eating from the tree? Amar, menichin chayei olam v'oskim b'chayei sha'ah. These people are leaving eternal life, i.e. learning Torah, and they're busy with narishkeiten, plowing and planting. Yeah, they're busy with
people I know, including myself, have been
Everybody needs to go on mute.
So, they're busy. These people are busy with the Norishkeiten, with the temporary life, instead of being consumed with the eternal life. What's going on? You see, it's again the same good old Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that we have known, that extreme man. It has a very rough and traumatic interaction with the material normal life, especially after 12 years in the cave. Every place that they were looking at, every place that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were looking at to it, miyat nisraf, it would burn. Their eyes were burning the places. We see here people again coming from a different planet with different standards. They're seeing people planting and plowing, making a living, nothing negative, but for them, in their criteria, it's being busy with temporary thing instead of being totally devoted and consumed with the eternal thing, which is Torah. And when they look at the places, then it's getting burned. Yatzta bat kol v'amar lehem. A heavenly voice went out and told them, Le'achriv olami yatzatem? God says, or the heavenly voice said, did you come out of the cave in order to destroy my world? Rabbi Shimon and your son, you came out of the cave in order to burn my world. Chizru lema'aratchem. Go back to the cave. You're not ready to get out this way. Hadurazu, they came back to the cave. Ityafu tracer yarchei shata. So now, instead of being 12 years there, they were a year there, 12 months. They said, okay, our punishment is 12 months in Gehenna. So the heavenly voice said, you can get out of the cave now. So they went out. Every place that Rabbi Eliezer would destroy with his eye, because Rabbi Eliezer still stayed, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, still stayed in that maximalist position. where the interaction between him, his spirituality and the world, his heavenly level in the world was traumatic. So he would destroy it, but Rabbi Shimon would heal it. Rabbi Shimon, something happened to him during that year. He internalized the criticism of Hashem that he should somehow adjust to the world or view the world, the material world, more in favor. And he's able to heal everything that his son is destroyed. And he appeases his son. And look at a statement that you will remind you, a source that we have already seen. He says, relax, my son. It's enough for the world, you and me. Meaning, okay, my son, you should have tolerance to these people, ordinary people, who are busy with the temporary material life. And don't be concerned that the world has to stand on Torah, which is true, because, okay, you and I are enough. Here you see that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai acknowledges that this world might need extreme people like him and his son in order that the world descend, needs a very solid spiritual extreme basis, but that's not the level for the entire world. That there is the world, there is room in the world, and more than room, that even the masses of the world should act normally. This is the nature of our Olam Hazeh, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the new Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that went through a process in the cave, in that year in the cave, that extra year in the cave. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai now comes to the conclusion that, yes, there is a need for an elite, extreme elite, but we should have tolerance, and it's normal that there is ordinary life. And he tells his son, relax, my son. Don't burn all the world. Relax, our son. It's enough that you and I are here in terms of the extreme spiritual basis. When at the eve of Shabbat, when Shabbos came in, they have seen a grandpa who took two hadassim and was running in Bein Hashmashot, two hadassim, and they asked him, why do you need this? The old man, this Saba, they asked him, why do you need it? So he said, L'chvod Shabbos. So why do we need two? He says, Echad keneged zachor, echad keneged shamor. I'm taking one hadas, one plant of hadas corresponding to zachor et Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho, and one for shamor et Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, with a good eye, and not a critical eye, is telling his son, look, my son, Chazi, kama chavivin mitzvot al Israel. How much the people of Israel are running after mitzvos. Yativ datayu, they relaxed, they were happy. Meaning, here Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is able to look with a good eye on this simple Jew, probably not well learned, that is have devotion to something that is not even a commandment. There's no commandment to bring two hadassim, one for Zachor and one for Shamor. But he says, look how they are happy with mitzvot. Now he says, since a miracle happened, I will fix something in this world. So we see Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai really went through a transformation from being very critical and a rough interaction with the ordinary life. Now he's even looking to develop the world, even materially, and ease life of people. And he views people more favorably. Says, is there something that I can fix? So here they tell him, I need to skip it. They tell him there is some place where there is a tumah, and we should purify we're not sure where their graves buried, and therefore we don't have ways to go, roads to go. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai miraculously finds out where their graves and where they're not graves, and he's helping them using his elevated forces, really. He's helping them in regular life. And then there is a wise guy saying critically, Tier Ben Yochai Beit HaKvarot, Ben Yochai purified a cemetery. Now look at what he answers him. If you were with us, and even if you were with, then you would say nicely. Now, when we were part of this discussion, they will say that Talmidei Chachamim are, okay, it's some critical statement. I want to go to the bottom line. He looked at him, and actually by looking at him, furiously, I guess, he killed him. Then he went out to the market. He saw Yehuda ben Gerim. You remember who is Yehuda ben Gerim? That's the student that had a big mouth that because of him telling up the discussion between the rabbis, real beginning of the story, Yehuda ben Gerim told up the story, and that's how the Romans found out, and that's why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai got in trouble. So right after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai actually killed that man that criticized the purification of the graves, now he goes out and sees Yehuda ben Gerim, and he says, this man is still alive? Natan Boinav, he looked at him, and Yehuda ben Gerim became a pile of bones. That's a very strong statement. Why am I? That's the end of this story. Now, I told you this story with no censorship, and I'll tell you what I mean by no censorship. I've seen a rabbi that I respect, a religious Zionist rabbi, that ended the story, ended the quote, when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to the old man with the two hadassim, look, my son, how the people of Israel are into mitzvos, and afterwards he fixed the road by purifying the graves, and that's where we ended the story. If you end the story there, then it's a very easy interpretation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was once an extremist, was once a radical person with a rough interaction with this material world, and he was a year in the cave, and he went through a process, and now he tells his son, look, my son, don't worry, it's enough for the world, you and me. Let's view these simple people favorably, like this old man running with the two hadassim, and let's help develop the world. Easy. But that's not intellectually honest. The story ends 3 lines later when he sees 2 people that upset him, and he looks at them, and they're burning out. What do I want to say? Things are more complex. Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon. It's the good old Rabbi Shimon. He is the Tana Eloki with the powers, with the extremity, with the heights, with coming from a different planet. He is still, as we see, the bottom line of the story is, he looked at him and he became a pile of bones, the one that he looked at him. That's the bottom line of the story. And yet still, yes, he definitely went through a process in the cave. He is now respecting the fact, tolerating the fact that there is a need, that this world is a material world, and that there are ordinary people that are good people, and that I should look at them favorably and try to help them. This is Rabbi Shimon coming out of the cave. Let's go on a little deeper. Okay, for the matter, As Rabbi Benny Lau clarifies, I think, very nicely, in this story that we just read, the beginning of it, Rabbi Yehuda praising the Romans for construction, and Rabbi Shimon criticizing them very, very harshly for the intentions of them for building these constructions. You see the big difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, which we see also in Halacha. Rabbi Yehuda is looking at the outcome, at the material. He says, you know what? They might have these intentions and that intentions, but I am giving them credit for developing and helping this material world and making our lives, also the Jews, easier. Rabbi Shimon says, I'm not judging the world according to the surface, superficially, according to the overt manifestations of this world. No, I'm looking at the depth, at the pnimius, at the inside, at the spirituality. So I'm interested in the intentions, not at the material manifestations, the deeds. Okay, very nice. They build bridges, they build markets. They build markets to put their prostitutes. That's what counts for me. Their intentions, not their deeds. Now, as you know, there's always a tension between what is the weight, how much weight do I give to the deeds, to the actions, and how much weight do I give to intentions? Part of the dispute between Christianity and Judaism is along these lines. Part of the dispute between Mitnagdim and Hasidim are along these lines. And yet still, we know that both are important. And I think that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree with each other that both are important. But there is a big question here in dispute regarding the focus, regarding what is the main criteria, at least for moral judgment. Yeah? Here, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai takes a position, and we're not surprised because we know that he is the Ana Eloki, the spiritual person, the elevated person, the non-material person. So no wonder why he goes after the intentions. And he says, the intentions, that's what counts for me. We see it in halacha too, and that's very nice. In halacha, I'll skip some sources here. What can I do? If we'll have time, we'll go back to them. Here, in Masechet Beitza, a famous machloket regarding Hilchos Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says, Davar she'ein mitkaven asur. The Rabbi Shimon Omer Amar Davar she'ein mitkaven mutar. Hilchos Shabbos, one is taking Damar Rabbi Shimon, Gorer Adam mitakisa v'safsal u'ilvad shelo yitkaven la'asot charitz. If one drags a chair over the sand, his intention is not to plow. His intention is just to move a chair, a heavy chair, from one spot to another spot. He has no intention to plow here, but there's might be an outcome of plowing, inadvertent, with no intention for that. Rabbi Yehuda says, that's plowing. He's machmir here. I look on the surface. I look at the overt manifestation. There is plowing here in reality. Just like Rabbi Yehuda said that they build bridges, the Romans, in reality. I look at the outcome. I look at what's going on materially. Rabbi Shimon says, no. One is allowed to drag a bench, to drag a chair, even if potentially, not inevitably, but potentially there'll be plowing here. Maybe plowing will be here because he had no intention for plowing. And I follow the intention. I follow the inside. That's Rabbi Shimon. And there are other examples to this in halacha. Another example is a different source that I brought, aside from Malacha Sheinat Tzricha L'Gufa that we don't have time. But there is the famous machloket, Le'meima de Rabbi Yehuda lo darish tama dekra, Rabbi Shimon darish tama dekra, a famous machloket. When there is a law in the Torah that there is no reason given to that law explicitly in the Torah, and most of the laws and commandments in the Torah, even commandments that make sense, the explanation for the commandment is not written explicitly. Now the question is, if I can assume the reason with high probability or maybe even with certainty. Will that have implication regarding the details of the law? Meaning, are the reasons for the laws are even have halachic implications regarding details of the law and ramifications? Rabbi Shimon goes all the way. He says, yes, I follow the reason of the law, and I even derive ramifications from that. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Even if I can speculate a reason for the law, but still, I won't use it as a basis to make ramifications and interpretations of details of the law, the reason. Rabbi Shimon follows the reason because, again, he follows the intention, the insight, the pnimius haTorah, okay? The more deeper and spiritual aspects of the Torah. That sometimes drives him to do chumrah, sometimes to do kula.
Does he do kulos too?
Yeah, look, first of all, we saw a reason. We saw already an example where he's going behind intention, not behind reason, served for a kula. The taking the bench. Rabbi Yehuda was machmir because you plowed. Rabbi Shimon says, since you didn't have intention to plow, it's okay. Now, in terms of judging people, since he judges the Romans according to their intentions, so sometimes it's very, very high standard and critical judgment of people. But now, I have to show you, after we've seen Rabbi Shimon's rough image, rough interactions with this world, but we saw that after coming out from the cave, it's a little more complex. He has tolerance and even respect for simple people who are not in his level. That's what we have seen. Now you could see it in the next source regarding Talmud Torah. You remember how extreme was he regarding Talmud Torah? Now look at what he says here. Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, says, even if someone read only Kriyat Shema, Shachris, and Ma'ariv, he fulfilled the commandment of Lo Yamush Sefer HaTorah Hazeh Mipicha. Now that's amazing. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Masechet Brachos said that Lo Yamush, well, if you're going to plow and this and that, then what will be left from Torah? Regarding the same verse, he says that Tachlis, in terms of the formal obligation of Talmud Torah, the formal obligation, one fulfills it just from saying Kriyat Shema in the morning and Kriyat Shema in the evening. Then the Amoraim, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yochanan says, look, this is such a great kula that we must not say it to Am Haaretz, because if the people will hear, they'll make a party, they'll never learn Torah. Rava was very deep here. He's saying, on the contrary, we should publish that. Why? Because the Amei Haaretz usually say, oh, we don't have a chance anyhow. We're not fulfilling this commandment anyhow. We're off the hook. We're lost anyhow. Rava, with a very, very good psychology here, says, no, we should encourage the people and say, look, you're in the game. You're fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah by saying Kriyat Shema, Shachris, and Ma'ariv, and whatever you can do more, because you're in the game. Shimon Bar Yochai. So here you see the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, again, following the Rabbi Shimon after the cave. He has tolerance of and understanding that some people are not living in the level, in that extreme level that he speaks about. Furthermore, as a deep person, I would say as a psychologist, as a person who goes deep and deep to the intentions, to the inner world, he tells us some very, very sensitive statements. First of all, he tells us a very extreme statement about not insulting people. And he says also here in Brachos, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Minayin she'ein maratzin la'adam bishat ka'aso, she'nemar panai elechu v'anichoti lach. Don't appease a person while they're still angry. If you're trying to ask for forgiveness from a person while he's still angry, you're doing it not for him, You're doing it for yourself because you can't tolerate that you hurt him. But you're not really serving him because now he's not ready. Wait till he'll calm down and then have a discussion with him and bear and live with it now. That's if you're focused on his needs. Okay? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is telling us that. But here, there's the most romantic and moving story in Shir Hashim Rabbah that shows us a total different side of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. A very sensitive and understanding side of him, how he saved the marriage of a couple that came to consult with him. And it's only because of the same koyach, the same strength that he has. The strength to look not superficially, not on the overt reality, but to dig deep inside. We've seen how digging inside sometimes led him to be very critical and very judgmental and very rough. For example, with the Romans, here we'll see how the same trait of digging deeper and looking in the inside, Dafka causes him to really save and help people when they're struggling with problems. Let's read this classic, very moving source that really deserves a class on its own, an hour class on its own. But we'll now have a short version of this. We've learned, says the source, a person married a lady, one person married a lady and was 10 years with her and she didn't give birth. So the Tanaic source says, he must not, he is obligated now, if he's 10 years married to her and there were no children, he can't get away from the commandment of pru'urvu, multiply and be fruitful. That's a very tough halachic source. Because this tough halachic source really says here what? Either divorce her, after 10 years you didn't have children from her, and marry another lady, or at least if you don't divorce her, then what you should do is marry another wife that times. But this way or that way, it's definitely a sacrifice in terms of the first marriage. Because I remind you that even when bigamy was allowed, already in the Tanakh times, it was viewed as something that definitely harms or has a potential of harming the relationship with the first wife. Yeah, that's why the second wife is called Sarah, trouble. Okay, the Sarah of the other wife. Okay, so this source is very tough. It says, if you're married 10 years and you don't have children, you're obligated to harm your marriage, your current marriage, either by divorce or by having another wife. Ravidi says, the story goes, a lady in Zidon, in Sidon, I spoke to you about Lebanon today, so you see, here's the circle is closed. The story goes about a lady in Sidon. She was with her husband for 10 years and she didn't give birth. They came to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and they asked to get divorced. So here they go to the rabbi in the rabbinate office. They bring a legitimate reason for divorce. We're 10 years married without children. And they're asking him, okay, just write us a get. If he was what we call a halachic bureaucrat, formalist, he would just write them the get. But that's not how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai acts. Amar lehu nchayechon. He tells them, believe me, just as you didn't, just as you got married by a party, you should get divorced by a party. Now I ask you all, does that seem to you, is that fitting Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to advise them to have a divorce party?
Obviously not.
It's a little surprising. I didn't see anywhere in the Torah, maybe in Tel Aviv circles, but I didn't see Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Torah circles that one should have a divorce party. But that's what he tells them. That's the instructions. He says, come on, he tells them, just as you got married by a party, I'll make you the gift, but first have a divorce party, then we'll talk. Interesting. They followed his ways, and they did a Yom Tov and a Suda Gdola, and then she gave him to drink at that party. Kevan shenityashva da'ato alav. Once he became good head, meaning he was happy, because he was a little shtickle drunk, not mamish drunk, but he had a good mood. Amar labiti, he told her, my wife, look, ראי, כל חפץ טוב שיש לי בבית, ותלי אותו ולכי לבית אביך. I'm large with you now. I love you. He doesn't tell her, look, we're getting divorced. And he had a good set of mind. He told her, look, my daughter, my wife, you're allowed to take any property from here that you want. I won't find any open check of our property is yours. What did she do after he fell asleep? She hinted to her servants, and she told them, carry him in the bed, take him and bring him to my father's home. So they carried him, and he went to her father's home. At midnight, he woke up after his wine was already away, and he asked her, Biti, where am I? So she answered him, you are at my father's house. So he asked her, Mali lebeit avich, what am I doing here? Amrale, she told him, לא כך אמרת לי בערב, כל חפץ טוב שיש לי בביתי, תלי אותי ולכי לבית אביך, אין חפץ טוב לי בעולם יותר ממך. This is probably the most romantic sentence ever written in the sages' literature. She tells them, isn't that what you told me? Any property that you want, good property that is in our house, in my house, you could take it to yourself and take it back to the house of your father while you're returning after the divorce. Well, she tells him, I don't have any better object, any better property more than you. Ein chefetz tov li ba'olam yoter mimcha. And we know that in Hebrew there is a pun here also. Chefetz is both object and desire.
Yeah.
I desire you. You are the one, you are the most precious object, she tells her husband, that I want. Halchu lahem etzel Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They went to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, and he stood up and he davened on them, and they got a son, and they never divorced. Now, this is a very romantic and moving story, but now let me ask you a question. We had here already a question, and we'll end the class with this. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he gives him a very weird instruction. Go have a divorce party. Where did he get that from? Question number 2, if you're such a high-level spiritual Tana, that when you daven to Hashem that this couple will have kids, they have kids, so why are you bothering them? They're coming to you, divorce us because we're 10 years married without kids. Tell them, excuse me a second, go daven on them, they'll have kids, and that's it. Why did he do all this thing, the divorce party and all this thing, and only then you daven on them and they have the kids? How do you understand this? And we'll end the class with this.
He was far more sensitive than we gave him credit for.
What?
I said he was a lot more sensitive to the human needs than we gave him credit for with the other stories.
Right, and I'm saying, why didn't he daven at first? Why did he do all of this thing with them?
Well, it seems that it's consistent when he recognized that people had to, their hishtadlus, that they had to plow and they had to earn their own parnasa, that was something of value, that the same thing here, that they had to do their own hishtadlut and not just rely upon him, to perform a miracle, something like that.
All right, Harold, thank you. That's a very good point, but I think there's more than that. And again, if we had more time, I'll open it more for discussion, but I see the clock and we'll end up here. Look, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai looks beyond the surface, not superficially. He digs deeper. He sees a couple. After 10 years, they didn't have kids. And they're just coming to him like formalists, halachic formalists. Look, we're married 10 years. We don't have kids. Okay, divorce us. Again, if he was just a rabbinic formalist, you'd say, yeah, that's a legit, indeed, it's written in the sources after 10 years, you should do pruvu. Okay, here's the get. He says, let's see, maybe after 10 years that they don't have kids, maybe the light that was the love that was in the beginning is now covered, is buried. They're in distress. Let's see if we can engine it again. Let's see. So he gives them that assignment. Just as you got married by a party, get divorced in a party. And let's see what happens. Maybe deep inside, there is love there still that could be uncovered. And that's what happened. Guess what? That's what happened. The fire was lit again. Now, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there's a point that I'll daven for kids. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai perhaps gives us a very, you could say even modern message. Children is very important. Children, though, is the fruit of love. It's not a technical thing. It's a fruit of love. First, let's establish the relationship lishma. Remember, when he tells her, take anything you want, and she tells him, you are the one that I want, at that moment, they have zero interest because they think, Rav Shagar clarified that. Rav Shagar, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. This moment, they're sure that they're getting divorced. Meaning there's zero interest here. There's no cheshbon, okay, I need to be nice to him because next week I'll still live with him. No, it's love for the sake of love. It's ahava she'einat tluya badavar. Love that is not for the sake of anything. Pure love. Love for the sake of love. That's the height that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai caused them to arrive. The most lack of instrumental love and the most deep lishma, inside love. Once Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai established this, now there's room for prayer for kids, for the fruit of love. So we see here the soft side of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We see here his sensitivity. We see here how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai doesn't just look at the surface and say, they don't have children, let's make a divorce. That's the overt data.
I have a fast question.
1 second. That was the overt material. And what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai does here, as a deep psychologist and one who goes to the secrets, to the esoteric, to the deep side, that is covered at surface glance, but he digs inside and says, I see here, this couple, maybe there's something deep here that could be uncovered. Maybe that was the source why they didn't have children, because they already lost something. And now, but I still sense perhaps there is here something to work with. And I'll give them that assignment. And then Baruch Hashem, everything opens up. I'll just add that there is an agada that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself was born for parents after 10 years. They didn't have kids. And they came to consult with Rabbi Akiva, and he told them, no, you'll have a kid in this year. And it was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but that was just a parenthetical remark. Yeah, I'm done with the class. Phil, please, b'vakasha.
The question simply was, and you sort of partially answered it right now, is how did he treat his own wife? He went to the cave for 12 years, and we don't even think about his relationship with his own wife.
Well, here, again, on the superficial answer, he was running for his life, that's all. So they had to be isolated. Also, I remind you that Rabbi Akiva was also isolated for 24 years.
With his wife's encouragement.
Right. No, and we see also in the beginning of the story that his wife was giving them food, was serving Rabbi Shimon and his son in the beginning of the story. Then he figured that he needs to run to the cave. But it's a good point. Okay.
What
I said-
happened, what happened to Rabbi Shimon in the year that he's in the cave, the 13th year? Was it self-revelation that he changed his whole attitude?
No, I
Maybe
think
it's-
that he heard that Hashem was upset with it. The heavenly voice said something very strong. Did you come out to destroy my world? Get back to the cave. That was a misser from the bat kol. So he had a whole year to internalize that misser.
But he still had his old. I must thank you. We've gone way over time, but it's wonderful.
Okay, Chaverim.
I would say to you one more thing. If you had said Hallel, complete Hallel, Hashem would be not unhappy.
I said complete Hallel, only without a bracha. Okay.
That's being
That's it.
too legalistic for me.
The laws of brachos are important laws, After all, we're people of halacha. Okay, but I hear what you're saying, Bevadai. Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much.
Be well.
Okay, for that. Bye-bye.
Gentlemen, next week.